What's up, Minnesota Viking fans? We are not dead. We are here. Thank you for joining the Purple People podcast. It's been a minute. It's kind of a slow part of the off season, gearing up for this new thing coming up, but we're glad to be back. My name's Kyle Smith. I am joined by Adam Carlson. How are you, sir?
Ayo. I am doing okay. Been running the AC a little bit so far already. Been a little
Nice.
warm up this way.
Summer's creeping in, man. We had it the other day. Those strings of 80-degree plus days in a row. It's right around the corner. And you guys both have fancy background. I love both of them.
Yeah, but
You
he's
have the
got a nice
office
green screen
background.
so his doesn't do this hair clipping that mine's doing.
Yeah, but I appreciate the office reference that you got going on down there. So you definitely win
Yeah.
on the style points with that one, Adam.
Oh yeah, big fan.
Kyle West is at TCO Performance Center. He's going to give us
Yeah,
a live update.
I stole the keys to TCO Performance Center. I'm in their studio right now. I've also been in the office areas, and I know an update on Dalvin Cook. I'm kidding, none of that's true. At 10 years in, I bought a green screen.
That's
I used to
hilarious.
just
I would
hang like a
ask
green
you.
blanket behind me,
Yeah,
and it would work pretty well.
this is a big monstrous thing that attaches to the back of my chair. That
Uh,
is, it's gigantic, but that's okay.
You're not really there. I would ask you to take like a pen or something from me. Just something to inconvenience somebody up there taking notes.
Just erase
That's what I would
everything on a
say.
whiteboard somewhere.
Yeah. I did not get this prepared. This is episode 521. I'm going to write this up here, but it's called Cooking with Gas. And we were going to talk about Dalvin Cook because that seemed to be the hot topic. I think it's been, and I'll just lead off, I think it's all but done and has been the writing on the wall. And I'm not going to steal your points, Kyle. I'm just going to alley-oop them up to you. But with Alexander investing the money that he did, and it's not a rumor, it's actually out there, many people saying the Vikings were shopping Dalvin Cook. He said earlier this year, after the season was over, I'm not taking a pay cut. The Vikings said, okay, well, we might not keep you. And the draft came around. We thought something would happen then. Nothing came out. Then we start looking at spot track. We're looking at contracts and how it's going to work for the team, how it's going to work for him. Post June 1st, the Vikings would save some money there. And it hasn't happened yet. I get it that, with the world and the way it works now, especially with social media, you want it done. Well, it's 12:01 on June 2nd. Dalvin Cook's still a Viking. What the hell? Okay. But also, kind of like, I don't want us to go into training camp with this still being an issue. So I'm sure it'll come up soon. But I would just like your guys' thoughts on the Dalvin Cook situation. I personally don't see him playing for us in September. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with the instant gratification that we live in as a society today, like when you hear post June 1st, they're going to do something with Dalvin Cook, we're thinking literally on June 1st by like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have info on that. Post June 1st means post June 1st.
Yeah.
Anytime after June 1st. There's not necessarily a big hurry to do movement on this. I think all the points we've made, they still stand about Dalvin Cook. He's a dynamic player. He's done a lot of good for this team. I don't want to pay him the contract that they currently have him under. I think that they have invested too many pieces and parts, whether it be re-signing Madison, draft picks, etc., to continue to keep him around. Because I feel like they've already got the process going to replace him, and this team is further than a Dalvin Cook away from winning a Super Bowl. So let's see what the younger guys that we've invested and brought in can do for this offense, and that means Dalvin Cook has to go. We all would have liked to have gotten some draft picks, some capital, maybe another player for him. That's not going to happen, so I think that you just have to rip the band-aid off and release him, let him go out into the wild, and he can sign with Miami, he can sign with the Jets, he can do whatever, and let's just part ways with Dalvin Cook.
To me, this is a weird situation because, to me, this has almost nothing to do with Dalvin Cook himself at this point. It's the front office, and they still have quite a few things they need to get off their plate before they can really focus on the upcoming season. On offense, it is the Dalvin Cook situation right now that is the tough part of everything, looking at the way things are going. And they've also got to be a little bit looking at down the road here because KJ Osborne is entering his final season with the Vikings. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe other teams could be looking at him as a potential number 2, and that's something the Vikings can't offer. So the Vikings have a lot of things they really need to figure out on defense. I mean, Danielle Hunter, we still don't know what's going on with him. And then you got the other side of the pass rush, which is going to be Davenport this year, which, as I outlined in my recent article over on the Viking Age, I don't see a situation where that signing leads to anything really great for the Vikings. And if he does well, he signs somewhere else for a mega contract. And if he doesn't do well, the Vikings paid $13 million for a guy that didn't play well. I mean, there's no real winning in that situation. So right now, the Vikings have to be looking at this whole thing as a series of events that need to happen before they get to the regular season. And this is just one domino in the line.
Right, and where do you rank? Like, if you're the Vikings GM, you're the Vikings brass. Like, you have to have a priority list, and so we know they're working on a contract for Justin Jefferson. Where do you rank that versus figuring out what you're doing with Dalvin Cook versus Danielle Hunter?
And then you got to add in all the debate over what to do at quarterback, because that's all anyone wants to talk about with the Vikings is, if Kirk Cousins goes, who's coming in.
Right, this entire fan base is like ready to move on from Kirk right now. I think you're planning for the future, but I don't think that's imminent. But that's something that's on your list of priorities. Clearly, as we'll talk about them making some other moves at the quarterback position later on in the episode.
So yeah, this is just one in a line of issues that the Vikings really have to work out, because it's a really troublesome time for this franchise that making the wrong decision could lead to a lot of loss of assets or time, or maybe even, I won't say competing now, because I don't believe the Vikings front office is looking at this roster and saying, we have a team that this team should go to the Super Bowl. I don't think the Vikings are saying that. I think they're saying we're working towards our vision for the future and we're rebuilding, but we don't want to completely wipe everything. We want to be a competitive rebuild to where they can at least challenge for the division or come close to having a winning record, because, of course, as I've said on the show before too, we've got a new GM and a new head coach that are in there, and they would like to stick around for a few extra years.
Well, and I had heard, and again, this is a point that I think needs to be brought up a little more often among Vikings fans. We don't do it enough. That you got to remember that Kevin O'Connell got his start in the NFL underneath Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. And one of the things that's kind of came out is that O'Connell really wants to install that winning culture in Minnesota. That's why it was important to him to go out and to, hey, we're going to bring a lot of the veteran players back his first year, and we're gonna win a bunch with them, and we're gonna prove that we can win in Minnesota. And so you're right, Adam. That's why I don't think that they're never going to intentionally tank like some fans want them to do. As much as maybe you could benefit from having that top 3 draft pick and getting that one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in a draft class, I don't think the Vikings are willing to do that.
I want to jump in and get some points to this. It's a tree branch of Vikings talk, and it could go several ways. But the Dalvin Cook situation, I'm agreeing with you guys. I don't think it's the main priority. I want Justin Jefferson happy more than anything. And I don't think Dalvin Cook is the missing piece to make that happen. Now, does it help? Sure, it can help in a small way to Danielle Hunter, who is underpaid and who should probably get a little more money. I'd like to see him stay too, because he's been pretty good for us. The Kirk Cousins thing, we'll talk about that in a little bit because it's funny. Just the three different directions that you could go with that. But for the Dalvin thing, I'm going to take one of Kyle's points. I'm not going to steal it, but I want to talk about it because it's a great point. The Vikings have invested so much in the running back position, albeit this is smaller currency. Obviously, if we look at the first round as a $100 bill, once you go down to the 50s, to the 20s, and the 10s and the 5s in the later rounds, they're as much invested as they were in Dalvin Cook and others. But all those cumulative picks that you have for other guys add up to the 100. Bryce here, we know Keenan is a great returner. I don't know what he does in between, the tackles. Ty Chandler is still on the roster. CJ Ham is here. You got to check out what you have there. Yeah, I mentioned him first.
That's the thing, too, is that you said a really excellent talking point of, well, you don't know what they can do between the lines. And you won't know until they're given the opportunity to do that. And you can't justify giving them that opportunity while you've got Dalvin Cook on the roster. It's an interesting position for the team to be in.
And I don't think preseason is really enough to test that.
No, it's not. It's not.
It never is. They're going to know more watching them. And obviously, this is not news to anyone. This is how NFL teams figure out their depth. But I'm firmly with you, Kyle, on that. They need to see what they have. You may have a gem that you don't know about. And let's not forget that little thing we talked about 3 or 4 times in the offseason since it circulated Twitter a lot, and it's a good stat to have. The Vikings don't have Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, have that kind of quarterback. We have Kirk, who's good, not great. He's what he is, and that's fine. I'm fine with him for now. But the Super Bowl winning team since the 2009 Saints, the starting running back doesn't get paid more than $2.5 million. The overwhelming majority is under that. It's like $1.5 million to $1 million. Sometimes it's in the 100,000s. I realize how prolific Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes are.
Right.
But they had like a 7th rounder starting for them. Who they draft a couple years ago, Edwards-Helaire or whoever, they're already ready to move on from him. They don't care. And it's not that he's a terrible player. And that's kind of why I like Kevin O'Connell so much is they're going to progressively forward to how the NFL – that Jordan Addison pick this year shows you the state of this team. They're like, no, this is an offense-driven league because defense is bad. All things considered with people leaving and how bad they ranked last year, that speaks statements to what they're trying to do. Being with Dalvin Cook, would I like him to stay? Sure. But I don't think he can anymore. When you dedicate the money to Alexander Mattison there, it wouldn't matter if Dalvin Cook came back and played for $100,000. You've already given the guy this chance. And let's not forget, Alexander Madison's coming up on, if it hasn't already happened, maybe I'm saying this now and should have looked further into it, but he's not like a second-year player. He's been in the league a couple of years. So he may be the guy going forward. And if you bring Dalvin Cook back, I think it's kind of like that Brett Favre situation when he retired, and then 3 months into training camp, he's like, or into the offseason, he's like, hey, I want to come back. Dude, we're already committed to this guy. You can't come back. Sorry.
I had heard that, you go back to the beginning of the offseason and, Dalvin Cook was pretty hard fast on, I am not going to take a pay cut. I want basically out of Minnesota. And you're forward a couple months, and I think he's learned that, the market, the trade market for running backs is non-existent, and other teams are just, they're not willing to pay that contract that he's got. And so all of a sudden, over the past couple weeks, you've heard a little more rumblings that maybe Dalvin Cook is a little more inclined to stay in Minnesota. And so that's an interesting scenario to unfold too. Ultimately, I think the Vikings hold the real cards here because we know they're not going to pay him his current contract. And so it's release him, or if you really want to stay, you really are going to take a massive pay cut to stay in Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know how he does with the commitment they have to Madison. That money that he got paid, whether you would say starter money is, looking at Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley or Nick Chubb or whoever.
Right.
But they committed more because he was clearly the running back number 2. But giving him more money and the deal that he got specifically, it kind of shows you like, no, you're going to be the dude now. And I think it can be more of a committee, but he'll be the guy that's featured. But I don't know in my heart of hearts how you commit to Alexander Madison like that and say, oh no, Cook can come back. That's going to create a little bit of drama. And I kind of want this gone before they start training camp.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hoping it was going to be today. Honestly, I'm one of the Twitter guys we're talking about. But long story short, yeah, I don't know how it works. I feel like it would just be better for both parties, and it sucks because Dalvin had an okay year last year. He's fine. He did his job, but it just doesn't. What's up from LA? What's up, dude? Yeah, it sucks because with the way this offense is now, it's not going to highlight him to where you're going to have a ton of hitters, even though he did his job pretty well. If this was 2 years ago, I think he would get very good compensation for him. But now I don't know if he's going to get a trade offer. I feel like if they've got a sixth,
no, he's not.
Thrown in their lap, they would have taken it by now. And I don't know that they've gotten that.
No one is trading anything for Cook because at this point, every other team knows that he's.
On a side note, why does the Vikings huddle logo behind West make me want a Snickers?
Because it kind of looks like a Snickers bar, don't it? I think every other team knows that he's gonna be released. So why would you even give a sixth?
If you do give it, only be something low so that you can acquire his rights. There'd have to be a team where you would think that he wouldn't want to go, because hasn't Dalvin Cook already said that he's open to going to Miami and Buffalo? Were those the two you named?
Yeah.
The issue here is that Minnesota does need to figure out a way to alleviate some of that pressure off the salary cap prices for the running back position, because that isn't a position you can just pour money in anymore, especially when your running back isn't absolutely just a monster anymore. Don't get me wrong, Cook had a decent season last year, and what did he have, injuries in both shoulders, wearing harnesses on both or something like that? But I mean, this Vikings front office, we've already seen what they're willing to do with some of these guys that have contracts that are a little bit too big for their britches. And they're cleaning house right now, trying to figure out how to get this team the way they want it. And they want to lock down guys like Justin Jefferson, who they know are the face of the future.
Agreed.
Right,
and that's a good turning point to like the other stuff I wanted to talk about too, because you got to keep Justin Jefferson happy. I'm assuming, and this is just how, I don't care, unless he wins a Super Bowl, I don't see how Kirk would come back next year. We kind of know what he is. And this is from my buddy Justin from Purple and Gold for Days. Y'all go check his YouTube channel and Twitter out and all that stuff, because this is a great one he made today on a base on Twitter. But saying facts about Kirk Cousins, it doesn't make me a hater. These two guys here will tell you, when we got him back in 2018, I talked a lot of shit about him. And then over the years, coming around saying, hey, look, I want our quarterback to win and succeed because I'm a fan of the team. He's going to come and go. I don't know how long he's going to be here. But my point being, we can take care of Justin Jefferson. And this has nothing to do with the Cook thing. This is going forward with the finances. Because Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, they absorbed a shit show of finances for this team. And they had to fix it.
They really did.
They're not going to fix it in 1 year. They're going into year two. They're trying to clear the shelves so they can restock it how they like. My point being is, when we go into this and we see Justin Jefferson taken care of, that locks him into this team for years. Well, what better thing would a young, shiny new quarterback need next year if we draft one than the number one receiver in the NFL being like, now I'm here for like 4 more years at least. Like, we can do this. TJ Hawkinson, a good security blanket. Things like that. All this will fall into place. And we can talk about the Kirk situation too. We can kind of roll with that if you want. But I'm excited because once he gets locked down and Jefferson's happy, I'm happy as a fan because he's done nothing but ascend every year. And this is not biased because I'm a Vikings fan. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. And you got to keep that guy here. You got to lock it down. Give him a 5-year deal and be like, here's the check, man. You tell us what it is.
I think in terms of the best receiver in the NFL, there's a very small group of about 3 or 4 players that you can put in that same pool, and it just kind of depends on the situational football as to maybe which one is the best, but they're all so damn close. And yeah, Jefferson is right up in there with your Cooper Kupps of the league.